content is for educational purposes only, drawing from our professional and educational experiences and opinions. Please use this information at your own personal or professional discretion. We are not liable for anything you do with this information.
Good evening, and welcome to Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector podcast. I am your host, Tabatha L. Tonight's episode is one that every electrical contractor, inspector, property owner, and general contractor needs to hear. I will be addressing a growing and very serious trend in the electrical industry. Projects being started, in many cases fully installed, without the required permits or inspections. And I want to be very clear from the beginning. This is not a paperwork issue. This is not a minor oversight. This is a safety issue. It is a legal issue. And it is a financial issue that can escalate very quickly if it is not handled correctly from the start. In tonight's episode, I will walk you through real-world inspection scenarios that have come directly from the field. These are actual situations involving stop work orders, unlicensed contractors, abandoned solar installations, low voltage installations, and device replacement violations. We will also go through several National Electrical Code that come up frequently during inspections. But more importantly, I want this episode to serve as a field guide, something you can take back to your job sites and your clients or your teams. Because at the end of the day, asking the right questions early in a project can be the difference between a smooth inspection or a complete shutdown. So let's get into it. The permit problem. One of the most concerning trends I'm seeing across my jurisdiction right now is work being started without a permit. In some cases, contractors are brought in after the fact and asked to fix it or pull a permit retroactively. Let me stop right there. That is not how this process works. A permit is not just a piece of paper. A permit is authorization to perform work under a licensed contractor, under inspections, and under code compliance from day one. When work is performed without that authorization, it becomes unpermitted work. And unpermitted work is considered unauthorized work. In most jurisdictions, including those operating under strict authority-having jurisdiction rules, unauthorized electrical installations must be addressed in a very specific way. Now, I want to emphasize something very important here. A licensed contractor cannot simply take over unpermitted work and make it legal after the fact. That can create serious liability issues, including being interpreted as aiding or abetting unlicensed activities. And that is not something any contractor should risk. Let's move into a real inspection scenario. A strip mall stop work order. The authority having jurisdiction issued a violation involving a strip mall owner who was issued a stop work order after electrical work was performed without the required permits or inspections. An unidentified contractor installed several raceways throughout the tenant space without authorization. And now the owner is asking a licensed contractor to step in and obtain a permit after the fact. After reviewing the project, multiple code violations were identified. Now, the question is, what will the authority having jurisdiction require for compliance, and can any of the existing electrical equipment remain in place? Here's the key point. This is something every contractor and property owner needs to understand. Work performed without a permit is considered unauthorized. Under most authority having jurisdiction requirements, That work must be removed so that the installation can be properly inspected and verified from the ground up. A permit is required not only for the new installation, but also for the abatement or removal of the illegal work. So you need 2 permits, or you can get 1, but the permit specifically has to state that it is for the new installation and the abatement. Once that removal is complete, a new permit can be issued for installations. Now, in some cases, the inspector may evaluate certain materials or equipment and determine whether they can remain in place. However, that decision is entirely at the discretion of the authority having jurisdiction. Nothing is automatically approved just because it's already installed. Another critical issue here is permit responsibility and licensing. Under the local authority having jurisdiction ordinance 1102-8010, permits are not transferable. They cannot be used to aid or abet unlicensed individuals or companies performing electrical work. That means a licensed contractor cannot simply step in and cover work that was performed illegally by someone else. Each year, a licensed contractor affirms that they will not participate in that type of activity. The permit authorizes only the licensed contractor and their direct employees to perform the work. Let's move to the next question, which ties directly into licensing and jurisdiction. A Missouri-based security company was contacted by an out-of-town contractor who installed approximately 120 Cat 5 cable drops without obtaining a license or permit. The contractor believed that low voltage communication work did not require permitting. They are now asking if a local licensed company can step in, obtain a permit, and assume responsibility for their installation. Here's the answer. Contractors working in any jurisdiction are required to follow that local authority having jurisdiction rules regardless of where they are based. If a contractor wants to perform work in this jurisdiction, they must obtain the proper local license, follow all permitting requirements, ensure all work is performed under that license. Low voltage work, including communication cabling like Cat 5, often still requires permits and inspection, depending on the jurisdiction. And again, a licensed contractor cannot simply take over a project to legitimize work that was performed illegally. Doing so could be considered aiding and abetting unlicensed activity, which is a direct violation of the ordinance and licensing agreement. The bottom line is this: all electrical work within the authority having jurisdiction requires proper permits and inspections. Unauthorized work must be addressed through removal, re-permitting, and compliance with code requirements. Trying to bypass the process doesn't save time or money. It usually results in delays, additional costs, and potential legal consequences. The next question. We are currently assisting a customer whose solar installation was left incomplete by a previous contractor. The client has retained our firm to complete the project. At this time, we have prepared updated stamp and approved construction plans, along with a structural letter to support moving forward. In a previous similar situation in another jurisdiction, the authority having jurisdiction permitted the reuse of certain solar components. Given that this system has already been partially installed, our proposed approach is as follows. A rough inspection of previously installed equipment, bonding and installation methods to ensure that the installation complies with submitted documents, approved plans, and building documentation. a final inspection upon project completion. Respectfully request confirmation that this proposed process aligns with your authority having jurisdiction, ordinance, and policies. The authority having jurisdiction response: there are no valid permits on file for this installation. As a result, the work is considered unauthorized and must be removed. Because of this, a licensed contractor may not obtain a permit to retroactively legitimize work performed without proper authorization. The authority having jurisdiction has determined the following: the solar racking system, considered the structural foundation, may remain in place. All other components must be removed. Removed components must remain on the job site and visible for inspection. Following this, inspector will evaluate the installation and determine whether new permitted work may proceed. This situation highlights a key compliance issue contractors must understand. A licensed contractor cannot assume responsibility for unpermitted work in an effort to make it compliant after the fact. Doing so may be considered, once again, aiding and abetting unlicensed activities, a violation of local ordinance and licensing requirements. These actions can place your contractor's license at a significant risk. The key takeaway: if electrical work is done without a permit, it is not simply incomplete, it is unauthorized. Before proceeding, the work must be exposed, evaluated, and, where required, removed. The project must restart under a properly issued permit. All work must be performed by a licensed contractor and their employees. You cannot fix an illegal installation by putting your name on it. You fix it by bringing it into compliance with the authority having jurisdiction. The next question: where does the authority having jurisdiction stand with sump pump GFCI requirements? The answer: the requirements for GFCI protection on sump pumps depends on the addition of the National Electrical Code that's adopted and any local amendments enforced by your authority having jurisdiction. The current authority having jurisdiction interpretation of sump pumps GFCI protection, based on the adopted local amendments of the National Electrical Code for 2014, a simplex single receptacle dedicated to a sump pump is permitted without GFCI protection. This serves as an exception to the standards, the NEC requirements, due to local adoptions, the local authority having jurisdiction. Now, important field considerations: the receptacle must be single, not a duplex, dedicated to the sump pump. If you do put a duplex receptacle and it is installed, it is required to be GFCI protected. Always verify local amendments, as this varies widely by jurisdictions. This is a classic example of why relying on the National Electrical Code is not enough. The authority having jurisdiction adopted amendments ultimately govern enforcement. The National Electrical Code sets the baseline, but the authority having jurisdiction defines the finish line. Question. A contractor asked about using a UL-listed staple designed to secure up to 4 NM Romex cables under a single staple. It's a new multi-cable staple. The authority having jurisdiction responded that the product appears to be UL listed. It has a UL product IQ, but approval is not automatic based solely on that listing. Before acceptance in the field, the following must be verified. The product must bear a valid UL listing on the product staple itself. If the product is too small to carry the mark, the original packaging must showing the listing. The inspector will verify the listing during the inspection before making a final determination. A critical code consideration to take into consideration when you're going to use that staple for cables or more, the ampacity adjustment factors. Even if the staple is listed and approved, the installation method still matters. So per the National Electrical Code, if 3 or more current carrying conductors or cables are bundled together for 24 inches or more, the ampacity adjustment derating is required. This applies regardless of whether the staple itself is listed. Before using the multi-cable staples, ensure that it is UL listed and it's visible. Have documentation available for inspection and be mindful of the cable size and the configuration. Like if you have 14-2 versus 4-10-3 cables are very different in heat consideration. Evaluate whether derating will impact circuit design, especially for kitchen or high load circuits. A listed product does not override the installation rules. Approval depends on the proper listing verification, correct installation methods, and compliance with the conductor ampacity rules. A UL listing gets the product in the door. Code compliance and installation keeps it in the building. Next question: flipping houses and device replacement. What are the authority having jurisdiction, policies, and rules? A field scenario: during a service meter inspection, it is common to encounter properties often being flipped, homes for sale, or apartments being remodeled, where most or all of the electrical devices and the receptacles, the lights, the switches have been replaced. In many cases, the permit is only for the service meter work to restore power. Devices and lighting replacements are not included on the permit. In many cases, the work has been performed without proper permits. The core issue is historically, enforcement has focused on requiring a permit for device replacement. However, a permit is authorization to proceed, not proof of compliance. Inspectors do not routinely remove devices to verify proper installation. Additionally, under many existing codes, device replacement is still considered routine maintenance and may not require a permit, but only when replacing like for like, one for one, not when replacing every device in a dwelling. The authority having jurisdiction has a policy. Policy reads as such: to better align with safety and efficiency, the authority having jurisdiction will implement the following policy. When device fixture replacement is when this issue is identified, instead of immediately requiring a permit or issuing a violation, the authority having jurisdiction will issue a field correction notice to the owner. The authority having jurisdiction device replacement policy will attach and be documented in the permit record. The next step is that the property owner must hire a licensed electrical contractor to remove and examine every replaced device or fixture, verify proper installation and code compliance, permit clarification. If the same contractor associated with the service permit perform the verification process, no additional permit will be required. But if a different contractor is hired, a new permit will be required from that different contractor. Contractor must submit a signed verification letter including the property address, existing permit number, or new permit number if applicable. Confirmation that all devices were examined. Verification of the following: no aluminum wiring present, or aluminum wiring properly terminated within listed devices or copper pigtails using approved connectors. Devices are properly grounded or non-grounding type used where permitted. The polarity is correct. The conductors are terminated correctly, wrapped in the proper direction. Devices are installed in approved electrical boxes. The GFCI devices function properly and the boxes are adequately sized. No signs of overheating, arcing, or installation damage. Ceiling fans are mounted to fan-rated boxes and grounded. Light fixtures are mounted to properly sized boxes and grounded. The final inspection process. The authority having jurisdiction will not approve the final inspection until the letter is received. Upon approval, the letter will be scanned into the permanent record. Inspection results will document and be documented accordingly. Policy intent. This approach ensures actual verification of safety and workmanship. Accountability from a qualified, licensed professional. We are not just looking for a permit, we're looking for proof the work was done safely and correctly. In this episode, I have given proper abatement instructions as an example within my authority having jurisdiction for unauthorized electrical work installed without a permit and inspections. Also, I answer questions received within the electrical industry. As mentioned earlier in this podcast, taking unpermitted projects will and can create severe consequences and penalties. Before you take on such a project, please contact your authority having jurisdiction to allow them to assist you with the correct information for the process of abating and a violation. Clear communication among all parties involved is essential to prevent misunderstandings. It is vital that everyone is aware of the authority having jurisdiction standards, ordinance, and regulations to guarantee adherence to local laws and safety protocols. My primary objective is to resolve electrical issues efficiently, facilitating early identification of potential problems, thus preventing costly delays and ensuring strict compliance with safety standards and electrical codes. I am committed to helping individuals better understand the fundamentals of electrical systems. Over time, I have seen how valuable it is when people take an active interest in their projects and seek a deeper understanding of the work being performed. That level of engagement supports safer outcomes and drives continuous improvements across the industry. Please join me on Wednesday, May the 6th, for another episode of Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector podcast. Together, we can contribute to educating the public and sharing knowledge to identify and address electrical safety concerns. In the meantime, I encourage you to visit my YouTube channel where I post short videos demonstrating common mistakes in electrical inspections. These videos offer insight into best practices and highlight what to avoid when working with electrical systems. Feel free to reach out via social media with any questions, comments, or topic suggestions. I am available on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, you can reach me at asktheladyelectricalinspector@gmail.com for further discussion or to share your thoughts. Let us collaborate to maintain safe and compliant electrical systems. Thank you for your time and good night.